Hello, hello. Thank you for joining me. My name is Suzi Dafnis, and you are listening to the Her Business podcast, where each week we talk about how you can run your business by your rules. And today I have a treat for you. We have a guest that's joining me who I'm so excited to introduce you to in just a moment. But first, I have a question for you. What is your freedom number? Your freedom number, not your revenue target for this year, not your profit estimate, but the big overarching number that if reached, you could sit back, sigh and say, okay, my business has done what I built it to do. The number that would give you a life no longer limited by the hours you work. It's kind of hard to pinpoint, right? We dream of that kind of freedom every day, but more likely than not, you haven't put a cold, hard number on what that freedom looks like. And my guest today believes that setting that freedom number, that end goal, affects every decision you make as the leader of your business. It determines the business model you build, the team you put around you, the offers you spend so much time on. All of it is connected to that number, that visionary number. Now, my guest launched her business at the age of 24 simply because she refused to work for anyone else. She went on to build large-scale businesses in one of the most male-dominated industries in the world, and then made a deliberate choice that if she built a business again, it would be unapologetically designed around women. She is the multi-award-winning global founder of Stella Insurance. She's the host of BBC Radio 4's Doe program and one of the most refreshingly direct voices in business today. So let's welcome Sam White to the show. Hey, Sam, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm very excited for this conversation. I, just before this interview, have introduced you and told people about your success in business and how you've really been a leader in a highly traditional, male-dominated industry, but you've created Stella, this beautiful business with a fantastic brand, by the way, which challenged the norm. What was the moment that you realized you didn't want to be the same, that you wanted to design a very specific type of business model?
Yeah, it's interesting because I set my first company up when I was 24 from my sister's conservatory. And as with most things when you're younger, it wasn't intentional at all. Mm-hmm. It was, I'd had a couple of jobs. I didn't like being told what to do. I didn't want to be sort of trapped in that kind of employment cycle, very independent. And so my first business really was just, how do I make some money so that I don't have to work for somebody else? And without even realizing it, I ended up sort of migrating into financial services, which is incredibly male dominated, and being really an extreme minority. So, you just kind of get used to being in the room as the only woman, and it was my norm. And I don't think I really became conscious of how different that was until I was a bit older and probably came into myself in terms of my own confidence and awareness. And when I did, it almost, it became a natural conclusion that in setting up a new business, I would want to do it from a perspective of kind of being very unapologetically female in a male-dominated space.
I love that you took that space. Sorry, did you finish? I don't want to talk up.
Yeah.
I love that you took that position, and obviously it's worked really, really well. And the business is built around a specific worldview. So when you were designing the business, were there any kind of non-negotiables that you would not compromise on in what the business stood for or what the model was?
Look, I mean, our model was really simple. We looked at financial services, and I'd got a background building businesses in motor insurance randomly. My first company was in claims, and then I built what's known as an MGA, which is effectively an insurance business using insurers' balance sheets, but designing products themselves. And so I understood motor insurance as a sort of first product line. But the simple premise that we set Stella up with was just starting from the consumer. So from a female perspective, what risks are potentially women exposed to that are more predominantly a problem for them than a problem for men? And then looking at the product design and kind of saying what's missing from the product features, what's missing from the underwriting. And so my non-negotiable was simply that we must always start from our customer's perspective, and that we won't allow ourselves to be watered down or generic. You can end up losing yourself and your voice quite significantly when you try and make everybody happy. And we said, that's not what we're doing here. We're very deliberately and intentionally designing financial service products around women. And so we always have to start from that lens on any product that we're launching into the market. So we've just launched a life insurance proposition with Zurich, and it had to have uniquely female-specific attributes to it. Otherwise, we wouldn't want to engage with the product.
And I feel like what you're saying there is such a sound lesson for, and I'll tell you why when I talk a little more about the women in the community, is that woman is at the center of all your decisions. Like, you are passionate about building this for her, regardless what the competition's doing, regardless what anyone else is doing or thinks that you should be doing. She is the one that is guiding the decisions you're making. And I think that it's so powerful a lesson for everybody listening. Yeah. Women in our community have generally built businesses that work, but they're actually quite exhausted by them. So when you look at a business model, how do you know whether it's aligned or whether it's actually draining the leader, the staff, everyone in the business?
Yeah, look, that's, and I've got loads of female entrepreneur friends, and, you know, I won't sugarcoat it. Having your own business is hard, right? Because you are carrying the full weight of responsibility, and you don't often know whether it's going to work or not. So I'm not necessarily a massive advocate, but Musk said something that really resonated for me. And he said that being a CEO and founder of a business is like staring into the abyss whilst eating broken glass. And it landed for me. And he said, you know, the staring into the abyss is that you are doing all of these things, but you can't possibly know whether they're actually going to work or not whilst you're in the midst of it. You don't know whether it's going to work until it does work. And, you know, that is a massive leap of faith. And the eating broken glass piece was that as the CEO of the business, you're the distillation point for all the worst problems that the business has, because, you know, if things are going well, nobody's going to come and bring them to you. They're just going to carry on dealing with it. So when they hit the, you know, unassailable problem, then they're going to come to you as the CEO and say, I have this problem, how do we solve it? And you're going to be sort of sat in that position. So, you know, make no mistake about it, having your own business is going to be tough. Now, for me, I have never found running my own business miserable, right? Because I do genuinely believe in everything I'm doing. And even when it's hard, it's not something that makes me feel like, you know, I've got to get into this dynamic again. And I think that's the thing that women in particular really need to ask themselves when they have a business, because the success or failure of a business, you know, some of it's luck, some of it's timing, some of it is just sticking it out and being resilient for long enough to see it turn. But if whilst you are in that business on a day-to-day basis, the feeling that you have, and I really do believe that this is a kind of emotional connectivity piece, is the sort of Sunday night dreading getting out of bed in the morning to go back into it, then I don't care how successful the business is, you should not be doing it. And equally, the business might not be successful, and, you know, it might take a number of years to get to that level of success that you're aspiring to. But if you're still feeling the energy and feeling the desire to get stuck into all of the horrible problems and the eating of broken glass, then I think you're good.
I love that. And that's such a picture in my mind with that analogy. It's not a pretty picture, but steering to the business, chewing on broken glass, but it really brings it home. And one of the things I know for me that helps me feel excited to work, in my business and to grow it is the women that I get to work with. And so you made a bold decision about who Stella is for and implicitly who it's not for. How important do you feel exclusion is in designing a sustainable business model? So going back to that ideal client, how important do you feel it was for you to know, here's who we're not for, this is not the woman we're for, and this is the woman we're for?
Yeah, look, so underwriting, ironically, from an insurance viewpoint, naturally does that from this is the profile of people that that we want to underwrite, that we think are going to be successful customers. So there's an element of commerciality to who you're choosing from a customer base. Now, I would say like we do insure men. We don't not insure men. So we never intentionally exclude anybody. But you also do need to decide who you're designing for. If other people then decide that they enjoy that or like that and want to engage with it, I often say I love Chinese food, but I'm not Chinese. You don't necessarily have to be part of that community in order to appreciate things that community might naturally appreciate. So I think, being true to your product design and just not worrying about whether that will be received by everybody in the way that you intend it to be received is important. I think it's important in life. Not everyone is going to enjoy you or understand you, but you can't be changing your behavior in order to fit somebody else's version of what is the right way to be or the right way to show up. And I think it's very much the same with your business. You decide what your business needs to be and who it needs to be for, and then you let the consumers make their own minds up about that.
That is so aligned with our tagline, which I'll ask you about later, which is your business, your rules. So I'll come back to that. But building a business in insurance, I assume it means regulation and risk and compliance, not a lightweight business model in any way. How did you design Stella so that you could scale it without being involved in every decision along the way, knowing that there are these important areas of the business and things that need to happen?
Yeah, look, so I live in the UK, the business is in Australia. So I can't afford to have a business that is entirely dependent on me and the decisions that I make on a day-to-day basis. And so I think two main things with Stella have allowed us to scale effectively. One is technology. So we built our own policy administration system from scratch. And we made sure that the technology was reflective of the experience that we wanted the consumers to have, which was, easy, light touch. We knew that a lot of insurance company processes to get cover were very laborious, lots of questions, manual processes. We wanted to take all of that out. And so we really kind of streamlined the experience. And that means that we have over 10,000 customers on the platform, but we only have 4 people in the call center because actually the customer can work digitally with the platform without having to go through to a call center, which, let's face it, nobody really wants to do, particularly not to talk about insurance. I mean, we have lovely people in our call center. But insurance is not a product that people generally want to spend an awful lot of time and their life on. They want to make it easy. So the technology from a consumer perspective allowed us to standardize that experience. But from a business design perspective, I think it's important to make sure that your structural infrastructure it is robust. And that for me is about aligning the team with the business objectives, but allowing them to make it their own. So we run a process. We run in 90-day sprints, because quite frankly, beyond 3 months at the moment, with the way that the world is actually, you're pushing it. And I know everybody, when you're raising money, wants a 3 and a 5 year plan. But my experience is that you have to anchor people in the here and now. So we have 90-day plans for all areas of the business. And we have OKRs that start with the simple kind of, this is what's important to the business, this is what's going to drive success. And then the individuals have their own OKRs, which they come to us and say, all right, your goal here is to grow from here to here. This is what I think in my role I can do to support that. And we just make sure that every single individual's targets in the business are aligned with the overall objective. And that's structural. If you don't have that structure in place, it's very easy, I think, for people to drift. And certainly I've had businesses in the past where we've had a lot of fun, and we've grown all sorts of interesting things, but that alignment was missing because we didn't have that sort of foundational piece in place.
So just to recap that, so you have obviously your bigger vision, you then break it down into 90-day sprints, but then you have a structure, using the word that you said, that allows people to be successful within that structure, with accountabilities, with very clear outcomes. And that, as you said, is so important, because we can have a great time, but in the end, if we don't have these structures, we don't have a scalable business. Would you agree?
100%. So, I like weight training. I went on a bodybuilding kind of process 12 months ago. Now, you can't build muscle in the gym by just turning up and messing around with various different machines. You have to have systematic progressions. You have to, it's quite repetitive. You've got to train the same muscles twice a week, every week. And you have to load those muscles up to take them past their maximum tolerance. And it's the same, I think, with performance structures within businesses. You go, right, this is the goal that I'm going to, and then I'm going to break that down into smaller pieces, and everybody is kind of very much focused on what that next objective is, and also very much aware of what everybody else's objective is, which we weekly will go on a call with all of the team members and ask them, how are you going with your 90-day plan? Are you on track? And if you're not, what help do you need from everybody else in order to be able to achieve it? So that level of awareness across the whole organisation, I think, is really key.
Thank you. I agree. Stella is created to reflect lived experience, particularly women's experiences, as you've said to us. How important do you feel it is for a founder's personal conviction and values to be embedded in the business model itself?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it necessarily has to be the founder. I think whoever's leading the business has to be passionate about what the business is doing. Like, you can probably create a perfectly sustainable and competent business with people that are just showing up to work to do their job. But I think going back to the eating broken glass, you, when running a business, are always going to hit some pretty big challenges. And if you're not passionate about what you're doing and caring about what you're doing, then I think it's very difficult to get the resilience needed to overcome those challenges.
Absolutely. And you've built businesses over different seasons of your life. How has the definition of a good business model changed as you've matured as a leader?
Yeah, so look, my first company, I grew to an £18 million turnover, 3-4 million EBIT, And at that stage of my life, by the time I'd got to that, I was still only probably 34. And at that stage in my life, I was just, I didn't have an end in sight. I was just having fun and building the business, and an opportunity would come up and I'd take it. And, I'd see where it took me, and then on to the next and on to the next. And I was enjoying it for the sake of enjoying it, which I don't have any regrets about. I had lots of really fun experiences and, built some good teams. But I think as you get older, you start to realize the game that you're in, and you start to align that with your own sort of personal legacy, sense of purpose, and also, your individual needs. And somebody said to me quite early in my entrepreneurial journey, you need to build with the end in sight. And I was always like, I'm not bothered about that. I'm doing my thing, and I'm growing it. And actually, now when I build a business, I do start from that end point. Like, what do I need as an individual, and what does good look like for this business that would enable it to be sellable? And that's, you may well have people in your network that are saying it's a lifestyle business. I just want to, I want to do this forever, and I'm quite happy just to kind of bob along and have my business doing whatever it's doing. But I think if the business is about creating long-term financial security for somebody, then they do have to start from a position of where is my end, and what does that look like for me, and what do I need out of this as an individual.
And it's perfect for what I'm about to ask you, which is if you were advising a woman who's already been successful in her business, but she's at this inflection point. So she perhaps has been in the business 5, 10, 15 years and, started with a passion, and now she doesn't want to start over necessarily. She's still got some juice, but she wants to lead differently, lead the business. What is the courageous decision that she might make about her business model or the business itself that would be a good thing for her to consider as she's looking into her future?
Yeah, look, the two things I always say to other female founders in that set of circumstance, one is what's your number? So what amount of money would you need to kind of not do this anymore, right? And then you very simply work back from that. So I was chatting to a lady the other day who had a food business, made protein cookies that she'd started in her own kitchen. And I mean, the business was really starting to scale. She'd got in a number of stores. And I said, what do you want? And she said, well, I want to sell. And I said, that's great. How much do you want to sell for? Because that's your end point. And she sat and she looked at me and she said, 10 million. So I said, right, okay, what are the multiples in your industry? Do you know? And she said, I think that they're 8 to 10 times. So I said, right, so you need to get your profit to 1.2 million, and then you've got the ability to sell your business for the 10 million pounds. I said, now if you look at your business model, she'd got a few different lines of products. It's like, how long do you want to be in this for? And which line of products is the most profitable line that you have right now with the highest margin that you can kind of really delve into to get to that number? And I think the second thing for me is being ruthlessly honest with yourself about what you're good at, and more importantly, what you're not good at. Now, for me, I love the vision bit. I love doing deals. I love kind of connecting and putting the pieces on the table in the first instance. I probably don't love the operational day-to-day grind. And so in a very early stage with all of my businesses, I will bring in people that do have that skill set, who do like the detail, who do want to kind of roll out these internal processes. And that frees me up to do the things that I believe are my strength, and also the things that I enjoy. Because, if you can't design a business so that it's actually playing to your strengths and you're doing the things that actually you enjoy on a day-to-day basis, what's the point? You might as well have a job with somebody else and take the pressure off.
Yeah, because it's a miserable place to be when you're spending the days not doing what you're really good at or what you enjoy. And really this message that I wanted to work with you on today is this leading differently, really taking the reins of our business. And I love your rebelliousness. I love that you said, great, they're all zigging, I'm going to zag. I'm going to go that way. And one of our taglines at Her Business is your business, your rules. And so you definitely play by your rules in terms of creating something amazing in a very traditionally male, as we said, industry, and a traditional industry as well. So when you hear that phrase, your business, your rules, what does it mean for you in this stage of your leadership?
Yeah, so this one I really pondered over when your questions came over, because I think for me, I think too many women feel the need to ask for permission, as opposed to, I always say women ask for permission, men ask for forgiveness. But you can be as brave and as bold as you want to be. That is the magic of setting up your own company. I was never particularly artistic at school, but I like to think I'm creative. And the point of having your own business is you've got a blank sheet of paper. So what does good look like for you? And your business, your rules means exactly that, right? Psychological safety is really important for me. So I very much lead from a place of vulnerability. I'm very open with the team. I'm open if I'm struggling with something or I need help. And that was critical for me because I don't want to be in an environment where I feel that I'm not being authentic. And it's my business, so I can create environments, and that may well not suit certain individuals. Some people, are very reserved. They consider that work and business, work and home should be kept incredibly separate, and they have a professional persona. And I say to those people that's great. When you set up your own company, then you might have a more, sort of traditional corporate perspective on the world. But if you're setting up your business from scratch and it's your business, then you can design it down from, the emotional engagement with the team to the type of product that you run to the hours that you have. Like we have 4-day working weeks in my businesses, and that was something that at the time was quite a brave decision and sometimes can be quite challenging. But having work-life balance is important to me, spending time with your family, making sure that you take care of yourself physically. And we felt that people, given that extra level of flexibility, would show up to work with more energy and more passion and more enthusiasm. Again, your business, your rules, it's not something that would necessarily work for everybody.
Thank you. And yes, we really are at the head of our business. I think sometimes we forget that we can change the rules. We do make up the rules, that we are at any moment in time able to change things in more of our favor. And I know that with everything that you've shared here today, that women will feel more empowered to make that difference in their own businesses. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
After a few years in your own business, so many of us find ourselves feeling trapped, a successful cage but a cage all the same. And what I love about Sam is that she completely dispels that idea. As she said, you have a blank sheet of paper. You can design your business however you want, even if you haven't seen it that way up until now. How liberating is that? You built the business, you make the rules. There's no industry standard you're required to conform to, no version of success that you are obligated to pursue, which, while liberating, can also feel a bit confronting, right? If there's no rules, that means we have to decide what we want. It's up to us to define the boundaries or the lack of boundaries that we want to play by. We have to decide, not just work and work and work, grow and grow and grow, which is what most women business owners find themselves doing. We set the direction, we get specific about what we truly want and what we're building towards, and most importantly, what the business needs to look like to get there. And I know that's not easy. That's the exact work that I do with women every day, is helping them get clear on that direction, get clear about what they truly want and what they want to build. So my challenge to you this week is sit with the number question that Sam posed. What is your freedom number? What is the figure that means that your business has done what you built it to do? Remember, that doesn't mean you automatically retire when you hit that number. You can work for as long as you want. But what is that freedom number? And take a look at your business model once you've determined that number. Look at the way your business is structured, who it serves, and where your time goes. Is it set up to take you to that number without you frying yourself? Something to keep in the back of your brain this week as you do all the amazing things that you are doing. Now, you can follow Sam's work and Stella Insurance at the links that I'm going to put in the show notes. You will find the show notes at herbusiness.com/365. That's herbusiness.com/365. I would definitely visit her website, get an estimate for your own insurance. This is an important part of business that isn't immediately sexy, but so essential, especially as you are growing. And if this conversation with Sam resonates with you, I would love it if you would share this episode with a business friend who might need to hear it today. Sharing the show, leaving reviews, is what helps us help more women business owners grow their businesses by their rules. If you're new to the show, be sure to hit follow, subscribe so that you catch the next episode. We're publishing every single week, interviews, answering listener questions, me spouting off about something that I'm learning. And so if you want to be a part of that, just go ahead and make sure that you are subscribed so that you get the next episode. Once again, the details for Sam and the work she does are on our website at herbusiness.com/364. You'll also find a summary of today's episode and links to any resources that we've talked about. Join us in the next episode for more inspiring stories and lessons from successful female entrepreneurs. We've got some amazing interviews coming up, some great questions that we're answering, and you'll find us right here next week here at the Her Business Podcast. Bye for now.